We're here to discuss this book, Small Acts of Resistance, by Steve Crawshaw and his colleague John Jackson. It's a fascinating book. It talks about little things that people do in societies to make change. And just flicking through, it's Afghans voting for singers in a television show to show that they can exercise their choice. Burmese stringing pictures of oppressive military officers around the necks of stray dogs in Rangoon, and Peruvian women having a mass washing of dirty laundry that helped bring down the quasi-dictator Albert Fujimori. The foreword is by Václav Havel, and he says, it's worth noting this because he was a pioneer of the East European collapse of communism. The rebellions that took place all across Eastern Europe in 1989 were the result of a series of individual actions by ordinary people which together made change inevitable. These small acts of resistance have had incomparably greater impact than anybody could have predicted. On the panel we've got Steve Crawshaw, who we will hear from in a second. We've got Saeed Kamali Degan, an Iranian journalist who writes frequently for The Guardian, the head of the BBC Burmese service, Tintar Sway, and Alice Ukoko, who's going to tell us about small acts of resistance in Africa. What I'd like to do is to ask each of you to give a little example. So Alice, perhaps we heard about Eastern Europe and about television sets in prams. In Africa, what are these little signs of resistance?
I think one I will be doing a disservice, if I don't mention, is the one that of the Liberian women. That women are the pillar for change, that women, they are peaceful, we do peaceful things, and we stand against quite a lot of guns. You can kill us because we fight for our children. They are our future, so we do everything that we can for them. We saw how in 2003, this was not seen by the world because this was a time where Iraq was very much on the agenda. But it turned out that the Liberian women were able to force Charles Taylor to talk peace with the opponent, not them. They didn't participate. They just said, well, we're going to defy you. We're going to stand in front of your guns. We're going to stand against everything you have. We're going to fast and we're going to pray, but the killing must stop. And we know that Charles Taylor is now standing trial in The Hague for what he did, and peace came. Who knew that peace would ever come to Liberia? But it did, and it came through simple resistance. In 2002, I also was able to see the African women in the Niger Delta. For a long time, over 50 years, the Niger Delta has been the underdog that was being the world, and yet nobody knew anything about what was going on in the Niger Delta, what the oil companies were doing in the Niger Delta, how our environment has been destroyed in the Niger Delta, how our people are being killed in the Niger Delta. But on the 8th of August, ordinary women decided, right, we want to talk to Shell. If we can't talk to our government, we will talk to Shell. We will stop Shell from doing what Shell is doing. We want to tell Shell that we cannot continue to borrow money to educate our children. Then we begin to borrow money to give them pocket money. So the women took off very early in the morning and went in front of Shell and said, we want to talk. We need to talk. You cannot be operating in our lands, and yet you've destroyed our livelihood. So we are going to stand here until you talk to us. Unfortunately, Shell decided to call on the Nigerian government, and they brought arms to bear. And it was interesting because the women, all they had in their hand was just pure water, nylon bags of water, and that was all they had. And the soldiers came, the armed police came, guns were walking, horse whip was at work, but the women said, we are not going to run. There's a particular woman with a child on her back, and he said, I will not run. I'm going to stand here because we need to change things. And it really made a change because of that single act, the whole world became aware. America came, Amnesty International came, and today we see here about the Niger Delta women.
Alice, you come from a huge canvas of a continent that has a dictatorship on one hand and a democracy next to each other and a complete mess here and there on the other. Take what Steve says there. I mean, you have these very original things. I mean, I've been in Africa and where there's no petrol and there's no cover, and the ingenuity of the people in Liberia that I went through is absolutely fantastic. And you wonder, why can't this intelligence be used to create the country? But it's the people, isn't it? Within. Is it really external influences, or is it the people?
I think what's happened, because I've just come back from Nigeria only June here, what people kept asking is, Alice, tell us, is all this campaigning you are doing having an impact outside? So really what they are waiting for is the whole world standing up and say, leave these people alone. So really, I think in case of Africa, you look at Africa, then you look at the leaders that are holding the African people down. They come out, they attend the G20 summit, and they are dilly-dallying with the rest of the world. So the African people, the feeling is that, oh yes, the leaders are working with the West. So what can we do? So people, and of course the resistance, because I've actually taken women on to charge on the ground. I say, what's going on? You are sitting here, you are sitting quietly, you are waiting for some kind of messiah to come from outside. And they say, but we are resisting, they are killing us. So, and they say, we are trying, but they are killing us, and people are not hearing about that. So we have that. So the issue of Africa, when we talk about democracy, Ghana, I've been told last Sunday that people think there's democracy in Ghana, but there isn't. So people on the ground know differently, they know better as to what is actually happening. But in actual fact, the picture that is created outside, and that is what the governments are doing, is very different from what is happening on the ground.
I'd like to, Alice, you and your group of women have faced down people with guns on both sides, haven't you? Those that are supporting your cause and those that are against your cause. What have you done?
Well, the issue of the resistance of women has not really produced much result as we should really expect it to do, because what's happened is that when the trouble begins, when the women stand out, we back off. For instance, again in 2003, there were a group of women in the Delta who decided to go in the nude for fear of being attacked by arms. They stripped themselves, and for 2 weeks they were in the bush, stark naked, and protesting the actions of the oil company in the place. And at the end of the day, they backed off, because after 2 weeks, everyone is naked and nothing is happening. The world is not listening. No one is saying, leave these women now. So in the end, people say, all right, then we're going home, because if we don't go home, we are fighting with mosquitoes here, and we are hungry. So we have the guns, and it's always said, please stay low. So even youth, the students that used to stand up and want to take over government and say, well, this is our time, we don't want guns. Everybody backed off, because they now tell parents, you better warn your children.
My name is Dorothy Byrne. I happen to work for Channel 4. I'm not particularly representing them tonight. I would like to ask the whole panel whether they think that small acts from outside can make a difference. Now, if you were to work for a marketing company, you might have listened to everybody tonight and say, to help women or people in Nigeria, what you needed to do was to get naked women to turn up in every country outside the Nigerian embassy.
Yes.
There is no point to having normal protesting placards. But if in every country nude women turned up, I think that would be noticed, really, wouldn't it? I'm not saying I advocate those things. I just ask, would they be noticed more than rather boring things that organisations do?
Yeah, but Alice, naked women outside embassies, is it the way to go?
I think we'll talk about the radio. Information is very powerful. And I think that one of the problems that there is that is really serious in Africa is that we don't have electricity. So we could talk about internet and pulling on the radio that you talked about. And I know that there is a race, like the houses in Nigeria. Every single one of them have a transistor radio where they can be spoken to, so they know exactly what's going on. So on the strength of that, information is power, and money is an issue. Because we, women of Africa, we've been toying with the idea, because women who are abused, women who are trying to resist the terrible situation they are in, if only they can know that the whole world is thinking about them and working with them, they'll be empowered. And of course, that will run a resistance.
Hello, good evening. I'm Norbert Stute. I'm, well, from Better World Links. My question is, governments and corporate media are not very well, they like to frame issues, and they're not very conducive of small acts of resistance. What can be done about it?
These are oppressive governments or democratic governments?
At the moment, I think about democratic governments.
You just rest the microphone, can go. Democratic governments. Alice, you know, a swathe of democratic governments in Africa.
Well, I'm here to see a democratic government in Africa. Because what we have, I think what we need to understand is that what is being brought forward, presented as democracy, really is not democracy. Look at, for instance, Kenya, where people went to the poll. You would say, yes, that would have been a democracy. But when the people voted, Mr. President lost, but swore himself in. So there we are. Everybody came. Thousand died as a result of that. And what then happened? There was, should we say, an expansion of constitution, and then they created a position of prime minister for the loser. So to make peace. We saw it again in Zimbabwe. Now we have, Zimbabwe now have a prime minister. Then you ask, so how has any of this helped those people who actually resisted the outcome or the refusal of the loser to leave? How do we push democracy to Africa? They will tell you, no, this is the way, this is African democracy. So, but it really is an oppressive regime.
So it's not done because people are afraid of doing it, or because they're not clever enough?
Well, I think what's happening is that whatever Africa churns out, the world will recognize. From the moment, and this is where we'll go back to the Channel 4 question, well, not for Channel 4, but is it when, no, what needs to happen is that when the rest of the world, the whole world says, sorry, we're not happy about this, perhaps Western government will be slow at recognizing some kind of made-believe African democracy. I don't know what that is. It's very similar to oppression. So we don't, whatever we bring, the West will take. So I think, yes, when everybody gets up and says, sorry, we don't agree with this, then obviously that is going to begin to fuel confidence. It's going to build confidence within African people, amongst Africans. And then they will have the courage, I would say, to say, right, okay, we don't agree. But right now, everybody says yes. Anyone who comes in, they are the author of the result. They know the result before it's actually done. They don't allow other people to vote. So they come out and we're taking it. So that's the way I see it for now.
I've come away with many thoughts, but two images. And I want to see if we can get some more. One is of the naked women against the machine guns. And the secondly is the Barclay Bank teller machines with black and white. They're sort of entrenched in my mind. So I wondered if each of you could encapsulate, and you've only got 15 seconds to do it. If you can't, just pass. Give us an image of your own communities based on this. Saeed?
Well, in Rwanda was, at some point, a student activist was arrested. And he was speaking in the university, and he had to flee the university wearing chador, this black cloth. And the government tried to humiliate him because of wearing that chador. And in response, the bloggers, everybody took their pictures in chador, and everybody, all men and boys, they took pictures with chador.
Great.
Which was very great.
Yeah. And from Burma, anything to encapsulate a resistance there? It can be imaginary or kind of happened.
Well, the very popular sign now is cross, not to vote in the elections, forthcoming elections. So everywhere there is a cross. And if you see a cross, that means that do not vote. And which means if by not voting, boycotting the elections, that means that this election will be whatever the results will mean that it's only the votes that the government and the government people who put pressure to vote the government, the result of those votes.
Okay. Alice?
Africa, power is corrupting, absolute power is corrupting absolutely in Africa. And what we're doing is pull on the issue of civil society. We are strengthening. We believe that the little acts of resistance that we have is not making any impact, because the media, the Western media, need to support us more, because the media they have there is corrupted. It's been paid to publish for them. Civil society outside need to come together and to be able to work with us. We're now we're working to create African Women Commission, that other people that kind of raises the profile of the African women across Africa to the international community, where it becomes, once we have recognition for that, we're struggling, we're looking for volunteers. That will become a simple act of resistance, which no African government can work against, because then the international community will feed in with us, and of course those governments who refuse to hold elections. I know in Cote d'Ivoire, the man is supposed to have been elected, go to the poll 5 years ago, is still there. We go to Uganda, the man is still very much not moving. We go to Zimbabwe, it's the same thing. Nigeria, nobody's voting anybody. So we have all of this. But the women are completely, they can go in the nude, they are doing everything, and people are being killed. It's not easy to stand in front of a machine that is killing people. People are being killed all the time. So we know that to be able to make the impact that is required, we need to strengthen civil society. So we are hoping to create, we're working to create, we're lobbying seriously. Last week we wrote to Her Majesty to please give us the nod for gender transformation, for the reformation of Africa, because that's the only thing that can do it. Where the women can stand shoulder to shoulder in New York and say to Nigeria, elect. If it's not working, then look for a peaceful way where everybody can go and have their own place and have peace. Go to Uganda. You removed Idi Amin, but you've been there now for many, many years, much longer than Idi Amin did. So don't hand over to your son, please move. Go to Senegal, please, we are standing against you. You've been there too long. You go to Ivory Coast, it is time you call proper election. Go to DRC, the raping of women got to stop. So until we raise the profile of women up to that point when the rest of the world can stand with us, where the world media can say, yes, though you are not Winnie Mandela, but we are listening to what you're saying, nothing will change.
Okay, not 15 seconds, but an excellent point. Steve, 15 seconds, something really clever.
It won't be clever at all. Let me try to do 2 into 15 seconds, because the UK is difficult for me. Foreign policy I would take, and I would put it almost into the 2 words Sri Lanka, or 1 word, 1 phrase, Sri Lanka. If people could go out of this room and have a sense of how bad things are and how little the UK and other governments want to confront what's happening in Sri Lanka, look at any of the website work of Amnesty International, any other organisation, Crisis Group, Human Rights Watch. That is important, and to put the pressure on both media in the room, but also on the politicians. Sri Lanka is a failure to have confronted sufficiently. A nice story I will take you, not from my own country, but my partially adopted country, as it were, Poland, which I feel connected to in many ways. Going back to when communism was still there, I talked about the pro-communist demonstrations they had. You had to wear something red, lipstick, nail varnish, red shirt, whatever it was. And if you hadn't got any of those, people started buying a kind of pizza which had some ketchup at the end. And the person who was running this was thrilled that she was getting so many customers. But he said, no, you have to shut this down because you're selling too many. She said, no, but I'm doing great business. The guy at the front of the queue said, can I just have the ketchup in that case, please? Because all I really need is the ketchup. The guy who just wanted ketchup was arrested, and within a year of that, democracy came to Poland. So I think that's a nice
ketchup. Thank you. Fantastic panel here. Great ideas.